Chosen one, the Spirit of God is speaking urgently. There is someone wearing the mask of a guide, pretending to lead you deeper, while secretly fastening a chain around your timing. They are not here to grow you. They are here to hold you. Hell fears your next move so much, it has assigned a counterfeit voice to keep you circling their counsel instead of following God's clear instructions. This is not coincidence. This is a precise, spiritual interception designed to harvest your hesitation. Hear me. Your orders from heaven have already been issued, and the enemy's only weapon left is to convince you to delay. You cannot afford to pause, not now, not here, not when the door is open. You've felt it. The way your peace drains after their words, the sudden fog that covers what was once clear, the eerie sense of being watched through your own conversations. They mirror your hunger for God, sprinkle half-truths like breadcrumbs, and feed you just enough mystery to keep you tethered to their voice, not His. They study your wounds and use them as entry points, presenting their control as protection. The Spirit revealed, this is not guidance, it is surveillance in disguise, a net spun with flattery, fear, and fractioned truth. Have you noticed how every divine delay they suggest always costs you momentum? That's not mentoring. That's manipulation, wrapped in scripture and timing phrases that sound holy but are really stalling orders. In this message, I will expose the exact hooks they use, how to shut the spiritual feed they have into your life, and the prophetic phrase that will cut their cord permanently. Before we go further, make a prophetic act right now. Type "no more leashes" or "unhooked" in the comments to agree with heaven. And hit like so this warning finds every chosen one who needs it before it's too late. If this is confirming something in your spirit, subscribe and turn on notifications. You cannot miss what comes next. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will not just identify the trap, it will give you the weapon to walk out, seal the door behind you, and move in a way that no enemy can anticipate or intercept. There is a pattern the enemy prefers when your mantle begins to shine. Admiration masquerading as mentorship, access framed as covering, counsel that always requires one more meeting, one more layer, one more delay. They learned that your power is not easily broken, but your timing can be harvested through polite detours that feel spiritual. So they built a soft prison, no chains, just invitations, no bars, just calendars. They orbit your hunger for wisdom and disguise control as care, building a rhythm where your obedience is replaced by discussion, your momentum by management, and your clarity by committee. Hear this. You are not called to be curated. You are called to be deployed. And anything that edits God's clear instructions into an endless draft is not guidance, it is interference. This is what I call a paperless prison. No contracts you can tear up, only agreements you renew with your attention. They drip secrets like an IV, just enough mystery to keep your hope awake, just enough fear to keep your feet still. The bonds are woven from compliments that addict you to approval, from warnings that make you second-guess, from puzzles that promise closure if you keep returning. You will not find a signature, but you will feel a sentence, running in circles, revising the same instruction, explaining the same obedience to people who never intend to release you. If your spirit has been pacing a small room that looks like love, this is your confirmation. It is a leash with a halo. Here is how the monitoring works in the spirit. Information in, momentum out. Each time you debrief your next step with a counterfeit guide, you light up a map of your route. Surveillance is satisfied, and resistance reorganizes. That is why fatigue so often follows their counsel, because spiritual bandwidth has been siphoned to fuel a war against your own assignment. They do not need to curse your path if they can chart it. They do not need to block your door if they can convince you to linger at the threshold. The Spirit revealed this clearly. The leak is not your faith. It is your disclosure. Heaven is inviting you into a season where silence is strategy and privacy is power. These are the three hooks they prefer. Flattery, words that inflate your identity while shrinking your independence, creating a dependency on their affirmation to move. Fear prophecy, discernments that lace your next step with imagined consequences unless you submit it to their gate, turning courage into caution. Fractional truth, a glitter of accuracy that earns trust but always withholds a piece, so you must return to complete the picture. Each hook is baited with language you respect, scripture, synchronicity, safety, but the outcome is identical. You are busier, not braver, informed, not ignited, aware, not advancing. Wisdom does not paralyze, it positions. Meanwhile, your inner life has been protesting. Holy unease visits when you over-explain. Dreams nudge you to move quietly. Peace floods when you keep certain plans off the table, and drains when you narrate them. Have you noticed how your spirit feels taller when you sit with God alone, and smaller when you rehearse your obedience to an audience? Why does the room feel colder after you set a boundary? Why do urgent messages arrive whenever you regain momentum? These are not random. They are pressure points on a soul contract you never meant to sign. The shepherd's voice leads forward. The leash loops you back. Look at the first trap in Scripture. In Eden, the serpent did not swing a sword. It asked a question that reframed obedience as something to negotiate. Knowledge was bait. Clarity became collateral. Did God really say? Was never about information. It was about interruption, turning a simple instruction into an endless debate. That pattern has not retired. When your instructions are clear, hell does not need to defeat your strength if it can seduce your sequence. The counterfeit guide is the updated serpent, fluent in your dialect, skilled in turning a straight path into a spiral. This is why heaven is cutting through the noise now, not to give you a newer, shinier secret, but to return you to the original order you already received. They call it covering, but it functions like custody. Emotional dependency grows in careful inches. First, they volunteer to pray with you, then to check in, then to be the final filter through which every step must pass. The affection feels safe. The guidance sounds noble, but notice the psychology beneath the scripture. You are gradually trained to need their yes before you honor God's yes. Your wins are quietly reframed as our victories, your delays as wise waiting, and your boundaries as immaturity. Before long, your calendar belongs to their availability, your language mirrors their phrases, and your confidence is leased to their approval. This is how false covering becomes a climate. Warm enough to keep you from running, controlled enough to keep you from flying. It is not shepherding, it is shaping, until your edges match their mold and your pace is domesticated to their comfort. Think of Delilah's method. She did not swing swords. She asked soft questions at tired hours, pressing Samson to translate mystery into manageable information. The questions were gentle, the setting intimate, but the goal was surgical. Extract the source, soften the vigilance, sell the haircut as a conversation. That is the very texture of your counterfeit guide's interest. They appear fascinated by your calling, but they are specifically hungry for the coordinates of your strength. Where does your oil come from? What happens when you rest? Who covers you? These are not neutral inquiries. They are chisels. The moment you reduce a God secret to a human script, you place holy fire in hands that only wanted heat, not holiness. And you feel it. The sacred goes dim in rooms that prefer control to wonder. Replace performative engagement with sacred resolve. Guard your attention like a treasury. It is the currency of your assignment. Revoke open access to your emotional dashboard and cancel the unspoken rule that every fresh instruction must be processed out loud. Draw a boundary where your clarity is incubated, not interrogated, where silence is not distance, but devotion, where you are answerable to God without auditioning your obedience for an audience. Let your soul breathe in rooms where you are not being read, but being restored. And allow the hunger that made you vulnerable to handlers be re-anchored in the presence that first called your name. This is not secrecy. This is stewardship of oil, of timing, of the holy weight you carry. Jezebel does not always roar. She often organizes. Control can arrive wearing intercessor's clothing, asking for full transparency and spiritual accountability that somehow only flows one way, toward them. Notice how care demands constant access to your emotional temperature, your schedule, your private revelations, and then claims offense when you limit the stream. They call it protection, but it behaves like possession. Holy leadership points you back to God and releases you to obey. Counterfeit oversight keeps you explaining yourself until your conviction feels impolite. When concern grows louder the moment you choose distance, you are not being cared for. You are being kept, and the keeping is calibrated to your pace until your timing no longer belongs to heaven, but to their calendar. One of the clearest signs you're in a net is what I call supernatural exhaustion. Not the fatigue of labor, but the drain of leakage. After their counsel, your bones feel heavy, your prayer life feels noisy, and your simple instructions suddenly require a round table. You sleep and wake more tired because your rest is working overtime to replace the virtue siphoned by overexposure. You try to worship, and it feels like wading through syrup. That is not normal, chosen one. That is a meter showing you where the leak is. God's wisdom may sober you, but it never leaves you dim. Heaven's clarity may convict you, but it never leaves you cramped. When guidance consistently empties you of courage, you are not being discipled. You are being drained. Remember David with Saul's armor. Everyone applauded the equipment, the pedigree, the history. Everything made sense except for the weight. He tried it on and discovered a truth you must reclaim. Even honorable armor can be a hindrance if it was not forged for your frame. Your counterfeit guide wants you clothed in their measurements so they can certify your movement. Heaven wants you light enough to run by faith. Test the fit. Does this counsel increase agility, or does it make you careful in all the wrong ways? If the gear requires you to move like them to be safe, it is not safety. It is sedation. Take it off. Your sling looks naive to strategists, but grace has already signed off on its aim, and obedience will always outrun a costume designed for applause. And think of Nehemiah on the wall. Invitations came with pious language and diplomatic tone. Come, let us talk. But the Spirit translated it correctly. Distraction is an assassination with manners. His reply must become yours when handlers summon you to endless clarifications. I am doing a great work and cannot come down. Stay out of it. Not every request deserves your presence. Not every concern deserves your explanation. And not every question deserves an answer. The wall is your assignment, not the meeting about your assignment. When you refuse the descent, you will feel the panic in the net that once held you. Because control withers where attention is withheld, and the work accelerates when your yes is given to God without needing permission to be pure. The enemy does not fear your power as much as it fears your decision. Power in potential is no threat. Power in motion is a crisis to the kingdom of darkness. This is why the counterfeit guide invests so heavily in keeping you deliberating, processing, and preparing rather than executing. Hesitation becomes their altar, and your timing the sacrifice. They know that once you commit, the momentum of heaven will make you unstoppable, so they seed just one more thing into every conversation. A subtle delay dressed as depth, a caution framed as wisdom, a second opinion that dilutes your first clarity. Chosen one, hell is not trying to destroy your calling, it is trying to domesticate it until it dies of neglect. This is why heaven is giving you a phrase for this hour. Stay out of it. It is not rudeness. It is a prophetic firewall. It means, do not let them into the place where God is speaking. Do not allow their voice to set the tempo for your obedience. Do not give them access to the coordinates of your next step. It is the sentence that seals your instructions in the vault of your spirit until heaven says, "Release." It is short enough to end a conversation without opening a new one, strong enough to close a door without slamming it. In 3 words, you disarm manipulation, cancel emotional blackmail, and refuse to sign the invisible contracts that have been drafted in your hesitation. When you speak, "Stay out of it," whether aloud to a person or silently in your spirit toward the invisible monitoring, something shifts. You reclaim the gates of your attention. You stop leaking the details that make you predictable. You step back into the authority of moving without needing human permission to confirm what God already commanded. You end the loop of over-explaining to ears that were never meant to carry your blueprint. This phrase is not just defensive, it is directive. It moves you out of debate and into deployment. And every time you use it, you remind both realms that your timing belongs to heaven alone. This is the principle of divine quarantine. Just as the body isolates what threatens to infect the whole, your spirit is being instructed to isolate your assignment from voices that contaminate momentum. This is not about cutting off everyone. It is about sealing the channels that have proven to be leak points. It is about limiting access to those who multiply clarity rather than multiply caution. In quarantine, your plans breathe without being monitored, your confidence grows without being siphoned, and your obedience matures without being second-guessed. The enemy cannot sabotage what it cannot see, and divine quarantine makes your next move invisible until it's too late for interference. Consider Gideon, called Mighty Warrior, while hiding in a winepress, long before he felt ready. God's instruction to move was not contingent on Gideon's self-perception. It was anchored in heaven's timing. If Gideon had waited for someone else to affirm his readiness, he would have missed the moment of divine alignment. This is your reminder. Readiness is a luxury, not a requirement. When heaven says, "Now," the weight of the word carries the grace to perform it. Any voice that tries to renegotiate God's now into later is functioning against your assignment, no matter how spiritual it sounds. Even Jesus modeled this boundary. In John 2:24, it says he did not entrust himself to them because he knew their hearts. He ministered, healed, and taught openly, but he guarded the deeper coordinates of his mission. There is a holy selectivity in what you share and with whom. Trust is not owed, it is stewarded. Some people can handle the fruit of your obedience, but not the seed of your instruction. The counterfeit guide wants both, because the seed can still be stolen. Learn from the master, give them the miracle, but keep the map. One of the most effective ways to keep the counterfeit guide from tracking your movements is to close the sensory doors they use to read your route. These are not always literal conversations. They can be social media posts, subtle updates, even the tone of your responses that give away whether you are in motion or in doubt. When you reduce the visibility of your progress, you reduce the accuracy of their interference. This is not secrecy for pride's sake. It is strategy for preservation. The less they know, the less they can preempt. Remember, the enemy cannot block what it cannot anticipate, and it cannot anticipate what it cannot see. From this place of guardedness, you begin to establish new protocols for your communication. Keep your answers short, your explanations minimal, and your details timed for after the fact, not before. Refuse to narrate the early stages of obedience, because that is when instructions are most vulnerable to corrosion. When you strip away the room for opinion, you strip away the possibility for manipulation. The counterfeit guide thrives on gaps they can fill with their interpretation. Your new discipline is to leave them nothing to interpret. This is how "stay out of it" shifts from a phrase to a lifestyle. It becomes the rhythm of your movement. There is also a prophetic symbolism in aligning with God's timing through visible acts. Numbers carry meaning in the spirit, and certain declarations anchor your agreement in both realms. When you hold fast to heaven's schedule, you resist the slow drip tactics of delay. Mark your alignment privately in prayer and publicly through steps that only God could have ordered. The more you act in sync with His rhythm, the more difficult it becomes for anyone else to set your pace. The counterfeit guide will feel the disconnection as a loss of leverage, because their influence was built on regulating when and how you move. Your private space with God must once again become the primary incubator of your instructions. Write what He says. Date it. Protect it. Let it mature in the hidden place where no one else can plant doubt or fear over it. The enemy fears the chosen one who can hold a word without leaking it prematurely. There is power in secrecy when that secrecy is sanctified. It keeps the oil pure and the assignment intact. The counterfeit guide cannot sabotage what they do not have access to. They cannot dilute what they do not hear. Test every voice by its fruit. When you leave their presence, do you feel more resolved or more reluctant? Does your faith feel fortified or frayed? Does your peace hold steady or evaporate within hours? This simple discernment test will expose whether you are in covenant with a divine guide or caught in orbit around a counterfeit. God's messengers will stir you to act. Hell's handlers will seduce you to wait. The difference is subtle in the moment, but undeniable in the outcome. One produces forward motion, the other endless rehearsal. Think of your instructions as treasures placed in a holy escrow. They are fully yours, but heaven will only release them when the appointed time arrives. Your role is to guard them until the release date, resisting any urge to prove your obedience to those who were never authorized to approve it. This is the essence of walking by faith and not by sight. Not everyone gets to see the blueprint while it's being built. They will see the manifestation, but the process remains between you and the one who called you. Breaking free from these invisible contracts begins with canceling the unspoken agreements you made through repeated disclosure. Each time you've processed your next step with someone not assigned to steward it, you've given them a thread to pull. Now, you cut those threads in prayer, in decision, and in practice. You choose the company that multiplies your faith, not your fears. You choose rooms that expand your clarity, not your caution. And you choose to move when heaven says move, even if no one else is clapping. There is an art to the silent exit, and it is one of the most powerful tools God will give you in this season. You do not need to announce it, defend it, or justify it. The counterfeit guide feeds on explanations because each one keeps you in the web a little longer. Instead, you create distance in a way that starves their access without igniting unnecessary warfare. Reduce communication. Decline invitations that do not align with your assignment. Let the relationship fade into the background while your focus sharpens on what God told you. Silence in the right places is not avoidance. It is alignment. As you step out of their orbit, you will notice an immediate shift in atmosphere. The constant noise in your spirit will begin to quiet. The cloudiness over your thoughts will lift. And the deep well of energy you thought was gone will start to refill. That's because you've stopped pouring into a vessel that was never meant to hold your oil. When you are no longer monitored, you are no longer manipulated. And when you are no longer manipulated, you are no longer delayed. This is the liberation hell has worked overtime to prevent you from tasting. Now, God will restore what the counterfeit tried to replace: your confidence in hearing His voice without an interpreter, your boldness to act without a co-signer, your trust in the clarity He gives you. You will remember how it felt to receive a word and obey it immediately, without weeks of negotiation. You will rediscover the joy of quick obedience, the thrill of watching God confirm your steps in real time, and the strength that comes from knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. Heaven calls this restoration, but it will feel like resurrection. Chosen one, now that you have stepped into this new dimension of clarity, you must reaffirm who you are every single day, not as a ritual, but as a weapon. Declare aloud, "I am God's secret weapon. I am set apart. I am untrackable to the enemy." These are not empty affirmations. They are spiritual declarations that fortify your destiny. Your voice builds walls around your calling, sealing it in divine protection. Every word is armor, every sentence a sword. The counterfeit can only latch onto what remains exposed, but when your identity is spoken in alignment with heaven, it becomes a locked gate the enemy cannot breach. Your assignment is no longer up for negotiation. Your voice has made it law. To secure this realm, you must seal it with heaven's legal decrees. Speak Psalm 91 over your days like a covering. No harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent. Declare Isaiah 54:17 with authority. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. These are not poetic comforts. They are spiritual documents filed in the courts of heaven, nullifying every demonic scheme that seeks to reattach itself to your purpose. With every declaration, you are severing invisible ties, tearing up shadow contracts, and announcing that your destiny is no longer accessible to manipulation. From now on, stay out of it becomes your sacred code. When drama calls, when guilt whispers, when old patterns try to sneak in, stay out of it. Not out of avoidance, but because your obedience demands full, undistracted focus. You are building something holy, and every refusal is a brick in the wall of divine momentum. And that wall? It's accelerating heaven's movement in your life. The delays are breaking, the atmosphere is shifting, and the weight that once held you back is gone. Now, things will move at the speed of your obedience. What took months will unfold in days. What felt locked will swing open before you knock. And when you look back, the moment will be unmistakable. The hour you chose God's voice over every counterfeit tug. The day you stopped explaining your obedience and simply walked it out. Hell will remember that moment. Heaven already celebrates it. And as you continue forward, those who once clung to you for access will fall away. Not because you changed, but because their leash snapped the moment you stopped feeding them information. That silence is confirmation. Their departure is proof. And your rise? It will be unstoppable. Because now, you don't just protect your mission. You move in sovereign fire. Chosen one, now that their voice has fallen silent. The voice of God is rising again in clarity and command. You will feel it, not just as a whisper, but as a weight that anchors your steps in divine certainty. Mornings will no longer begin in confusion, but with purpose already burning in your bones. Before your eyes even open, your spirit will sense the next instruction. This is the atmosphere where miracles manifest, not through striving or begging, but through alignment. Your consistent obedience has become a sacred runway for heaven's sudden intervention. The momentum of God is catching you now, and what once felt delayed will unfold in divine precision. You are not just recovering, you are being accelerated, and the power behind your next steps will leave no doubt of who called you. As the fog lifts, you'll begin to see just how far the counterfeit guide's influence reached. It wasn't just about conversations or control. It shaped how people saw you, what doors opened, even how you perceived your own worth. But with that weight now lifted, you are meeting the original version of yourself again, the one who was chosen before opinions distorted your view. This revelation will challenge you to step back into strength you thought had disappeared. But nothing was lost. It was only muted beneath layers of manipulation. And with each day, as clarity returns and your posture shifts, you'll feel the roar coming back into your voice. And yes, the counterfeit may attempt re-entry through new faces, familiar tones, or subtle nostalgia, but your soul knows better now. Stay out of it will be more than a phrase. It will be a spiritual stance, a holy boundary that requires no explanation. And in holding that line, your mission will multiply. The energy once wasted on managing someone else's emotions will now be fully invested in the construction of your divine assignment. What once drained you now fuels you. What once distracted you now drives you. This isn't just freedom from a person, it's freedom into purpose. And with every act of obedience, you announce to both heaven and hell that your loyalty is unshakably rooted in the one who called you, not the voices that tried to control you. Expect divine acceleration. What was delayed will be delivered. What was stolen will be restored. Those who doubted you will witness doors open that no man could force shut. And finally, understand, this isn't just a release, it's a deployment. You've been forged in fire, hidden in silence, and are now being released with violent precision. From this point on, you move with a rhythm hell cannot anticipate and a power it cannot touch. Your story from this moment forward will be marked by a holy boldness. No longer will you wait for conditions to be perfect or for everyone to understand your path. You will move when God says move, even if no one else sees the logic. This will unsettle some and inspire others, but it will keep you in the slipstream of divine timing where miracles manifest naturally. You will learn to trust the invisible signals of the Spirit over the visible consensus of people. And in doing so, you will find a rhythm of life that feels lighter, sharper, and more fruitful than anything you've known before. There will be a noticeable peace in your spirit as you walk this new path. A deep, unshakable assurance that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The anxiety that once came from overthinking will dissolve, replaced by a quiet confidence. You will find joy in the simple act of obedience, even before the results appear. This peace will become your compass. The moment it is disturbed, you will know to check your boundaries and realign. It will serve as an early warning system, alerting you before any counterfeit influence can slip back in. As your influence grows, be mindful to steward it differently than those who tried to control you. Lead without leashes. Guide without grasping. Offer wisdom without demanding dependence. You will become a safe place for other chosen ones who have endured the same traps, and your testimony will unlock their courage to break free. What the enemy meant to use as a cage around you will become a key in your hand to set others free. This is how God redeems the schemes of darkness, by making you the living proof that His way works. Expect your discernment to sharpen dramatically. Where once manipulation could hide behind spiritual language, you will now sense the counterfeit within seconds. This discernment is not for suspicion's sake. It is for precision. You will know where to pour and where to withhold, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to stay and when to walk away. The days of giving unguarded access to your spirit are over, and this discipline will protect both your anointing and your assignments. Your next moves will not just be steps forward, they will be strikes. Every act of obedience will dismantle something the enemy built. Every yes to God will be a no to the forces that tried to contain you. Your pace will be unpredictable, your strategies untraceable, and your results undeniable. The same realm that once monitored you will now lose sight of you entirely, because you will have risen above its reach. You are no longer a visible target. You are a moving weapon in the hands of the Almighty. Look ahead, chosen one. The season you are entering is not one of survival, but of strategic advancement. You will build what others said could not be built, go where others said you could not go, and achieve in months what they thought would take years. This is what happens when the leash is gone. Your capacity multiplies, your vision clears, and your impact deepens. You will see the fruit of obedience quickly, and it will confirm every hard choice you made to break free. If this word has opened your eyes, declare it in the comments right now. I am protected, as a sign you are cutting access to every counterfeit guide. Like this video so the warning reaches others, and subscribe with notifications so you remain under this covering of timely revelation. Hell feared your next move for a reason, because it knew once you stepped into this level of clarity, nothing could stand in your way. You are God's secret weapon, released at the exact moment the battle demands your strike. From here on, your steps will be led by the Spirit, your timing guarded by heaven, and your mission impossible to intercept. This is not the end of your fight. It is the beginning of your reign. Move now, chosen one. The battlefield is waiting for your victory.